I know no one's actually here live right now for this. Maybe our mothers will all join here in the next few minutes, at least get 4 viewers here for this podcast about, it's going to be a little bit about modesty, women's modesty, but that's not the primary focus in my mind, at least. More of it is the idea of women's fashion, the importance of fashion. I did a podcast a few weeks ago now with a couple of my good friends here in Europe about men's fashion. I found it really fascinating, and it actually has changed how I dress. The week afterwards, I went out and spent a lot of money on some really nice clothes, a lot of money. But, you know, it did change my viewpoint. It changed how I think about things, and I feel better about it. Honestly, I go to church and I dress really nice, and I'm glad. I'm glad for it, and I hope that other people took something from it, you know, listened to it, and maybe they're out there dressing a little bit better as well. You probably hear from me. I'm a little bit sick, so pardon that if I have some sniffles or anything, and may have to run for a Kleenex. These lovely ladies will all have to, you know, take over and run with it. So Colleen has already been on a show with me before. She's well known in the Twitterverse, at least. Colleen's down here. She, as you can see, she just finished teaching school. So Colleen, thank you again very much for joining. We're also going to be using some of her material. She has a fantastic PowerPoint regarding exactly this topic. I mean, almost to a T. It's really, really good. I don't know if I understand or agree with everything, but it's absolutely worth looking at and checking over, and maybe 10 times to try to understand it. Guys, don't even try it. This is for the ladies. Trust me, you're all gonna be like, what? You don't need to look at it. This is for the ladies, but I think they'll find it very interesting. I know my wife did as well. Erin, at least on my screen, she's over here right next to me. Erin over here. She was with us also in Germany a few months back. And so Erin's a good friend of ours, good friend of the family. My little daughter is always saying for Erin, it's like, Erin home, America. It's like, yeah, that's true. And down below, at least on my screen, is Isabel. She's one of my Colorado homies. So I think now you're up in Washington, yeah?
Yes, I'm in Spokane currently.
I don't know why you would leave Colorado, but I guess I did too. So I can't say very much. All right, I'm gonna go over to YouTube and try to get this real quick. Erin, why don't you tell me real quickly about yourself, if you would? It could be 10 seconds if you want.
All right, 10 seconds. I'm the first girl in a family after 4 boys, so I think my modesty standards are, well, I was kind of tomboyish for a long time, so I kind of found myself a little bit later, I guess you could say. That's my 10 seconds.
And okay, I got to ask you then, how did you find yourself, as you say? How did that happen?
Probably through the church, going to mass every Sunday, dressing for church. You know, of course, you got to be feminine and presentable in church. So that's kind of where I got my sense of style, and not from my brothers.
That is a plus, I would say. I got my style from my brothers too, and that was also not a good thing, but especially if you're a gal, I suppose that's probably not the best way to go. But I think that's an interesting thing, though, because you say though that you have to be modest in church, and I think you absolutely should be. But I think that's also a topic that I think many people don't take seriously enough. But we'll get into that maybe a little bit later. You can tell exactly. I would like to hear exactly why you chose it, because I don't think just going to church did, but we'll come back to you in a second. So Isabel, a little bit about you. Who is Isabel?
So I'm Isabel Martinez. I grew up in Colorado, like Kevin said. I have, I am one of 7 girls. I only have 1 brother. So I think that has definitely influenced the way I dress, and finding how I dress and wanting to be a little bit more of an individual and that's clothing is definitely a way to express that. So I think that has really helped me, having so many sisters. So.
And was that a problem? Was that a problem with your brother, like the opposite side? I hope he was wearing pants and stuff all the time.
No, it was.
All right.
My dad was very like, you girls are not to dress him up in his play clothes. That is not
tough, man. That's tough.
And we're like, well, so that was, but yeah, no, having 7 girls in a family definitely
that's intense.
Influenced how I dress now, how I dressed when I was younger. It was all hand-me-downs. I have 3 older sisters, so.
And so now you're like, I'm not going to wear anything that's been used ever again.
No, I still steal my sister's clothes when I go home.
Well, I guess that's a good thing. I guess that's good. Makes it's cheaper at least. So Colleen, how about you? You've been on the show again but way back when, it was one of the first shows I ever did on the Catholic Family Podcast. So maybe a little brief introduction. Who is Colleen?
Okay, well, I had the opposite problem to Isabella's, and my sisters would go on stealing my clothes. But I am the oldest of 7. I have 2 sisters and 4 brothers. My one brother is a priest. I have another sister who's a nun. I now have 2 little nieces who are very cute. But yeah, I've been sedevacant conscious my whole life. Definitely had to go through a bit of struggle, especially my teen years and, getting into college, figuring out, what I wanted to wear, how I wanted to look, and that kind of thing, and actually putting it into practice. That was a bit of a struggle. So I have some perspective there. And I just kind of started looking into it more in depth after various things that friends shared with me. And then also because I, at the time, had a sewing business, I started looking more into like the principles of actual fashion design. And then in college, I minored in graphic design, and go to figure that graphic design uses a lot of the same principles as fashion design. And they often work together in ways that people don't realize. So that's where I find a lot of the scientific aspect of why certain clothes look good and why certain clothes are modest versus immodest. A lot of it is actually based on those principles.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. It's definitely a topic that we want to cover. It's really almost, to me, the most important. It's not an issue, but the point is it objective or subjective? And we talked a little bit before we started streaming that it's a little bit of both. There is objective beauty or style, and there's subjective style and beauty. I think we'd all likely agree with that. But then the question is, okay, where does that begin and where does it end? And that's something that I obviously have absolutely zero clue about. But maybe by the end of this conversation, maybe we'll have a little bit better. And it helped looking at Colleen's PowerPoint that it did show a little bit. Okay, here there is a reason for this, and this. If you have this body type, then you shouldn't wear this, and that makes sense. And I mean, it's like nature. God creates things in a certain way that look beautiful, and if you're gonna drape a tarp over it, it needs to be the proper fitting one. If we're talking about trees here, we're talking about trees. And as we're going, anyone who's watching this, please like, share, and subscribe. This is streaming right now on Facebook and YouTube. If you're streaming on Facebook, I recommend you go over to YouTube. I will check the comment section on YouTube. You can, voice what you have to say, ask some questions, complain about anything I have to say about women's fashion, whatever you want to do. It helps the show if you share. We're not making any money. It's just trying to get good ideas, good culture, good Catholicism out on the airwaves. So please like, share, and subscribe, and comment on the YouTube channel. Catholic Family Podcast should be live as we speak. So Colleen, I think we're going to start with you. And again, we don't want to dwell on this too long on the modesty side, because that's really more of something that I think everyone's probably heard from their parents since they were little and their priests. Maybe not everybody, but let's cover it real quickly. I mean, let's give me a 1 minute or 30-second idea of what is modesty. And let's say church. Let's go to church. Let's go really on the strictest side of modesty. What is the modest church dress code?
Well, actually, I would rather look at it from a scientific perspective.
Go for it.
First,
Sure.
Because it's actually something, it reinforces the church teaching on it, but it explains why, which is something that a lot of people have not thought about.
Cool.
The basic parameters, if you want to follow the Catholic Church teaching on modesty, are that you must cover more than half of your legs, more than half of your upper arms, and more than half of your chest. And the reason for this is essentially proportion. If someone is looking at you and they see more than half of your leg exposed, then the human eye is designed to round up. You all familiar with the rounding rule? So, 5 or greater, you round up. So if they're seeing more than half of your legs, for example, the eye automatically rounds up and says, wow, legs to look at. And the same thing with your chest, with your arms, wherever. So the church standard, which is minimum 3/4 sleeves, neckline about no lower than here, and skirts below the knees, they knew this. And they weren't able to articulate it. It's not necessarily spelled out in your church dress code, but that is the reason behind it, because the church knows how the human brain works.
Right. And so what does the church dress code literally say? for women? Anybody?
The cheating is skirts must come a little bit below the knees. Sleeves have to go at least 1/4 length, preferably to the elbows, and neckline no lower. They say the pit of the throat, but the easiest way to do it is actually just put your fingers close together, put it at the bottom of your neck, and then wherever the bottom of your pinky is, that's pretty much the limit.
Interesting. And so is that scientifically modest or scientifically more attractive? You know, I mean, so I guess it depends on what are you trying to attract people to? That's kind of the point.
Kind of in a way, both, but in some part that depends on your figure type. So if you're heavy set and you're dressed immodestly, generally speaking, it's not going to look attractive because you're revealing a lot of fat rolls and things that people aren't necessarily going to see. Obviously, people who are built like a model can get away with a lot more in terms of looking good. I have a slide I'd like to show later about pants in particular that demonstrates this very clearly. People who have a good figure, so to speak, and this goes for men or women, can get away with a lot more fashion-wise, where it will still look good even though they're scantily dressed because their body looks good underneath. Whereas generally speaking, the less perfect or less ideal your body is, the more care you want to take of the fit and the lines of your clothing, because it has a big impact on how well you look in the clothing.
And I guess I'll ask Aaron this one. When you go and buy clothes, how scientific are you? What is your mindset when you're going to buy? Are you going and saying, is this modest, or are you saying, does this look good?
I think it's definitely both. I think you have to kind of look at all the different aspects when you're going to buy clothes. And what was the first part of the question? Because I had something to say on that, but I blanked.
I think it was, is it, if you go shopping, I think you answered it pretty much. I don't remember I don't remember the first part of it either.
Sorry. I think there was another question you asked prior to that.
I may have. Colleen, do you remember?
I think it was just whether when you buy clothes, you look at it more from a scientific aspect or more of a modesty aspect.
Right. Thank you. So I don't know so much about the science behind all of it. I reviewed Colleen's PowerPoint before doing this, and a lot of that was really interesting because I don't know my own like skin tone or how to dress specifically for like what looks really good on my body type, my hair color. I don't know all of that. So that was really, really helpful to kind of see more of a scientific aspect and kind of see maybe now I will shop for that in the future since I know a little bit more about that. Thank you, Colleen.
You're welcome. Yeah, a friend of mine introduced me to the whole colors thing a few years ago, and it was like, wow, mind blowing. Because I didn't know all that before, and when I was a kid, I just I wore hand-me-downs like you did, Isabel, and it was you just wore whatever you had that fit, kind of thing. And then
so it really broadens.
Yeah, for me, it made the colors especially made a huge difference. Like anymore, literally, if I go shopping, it honestly makes shopping easier because it's like if these colors are not my colors, I do not buy them. Period.
So is that with your skin tone or what are we saying? Hair color?
It has to do with your skin tone, your hair color, your eye color. Basically, though, the biggest criteria is whether your skin and hair are warm, which means you either have like gold or red highlights in your hair and you have blue or green or brown eyes. Or if you're cool tones, which means you have more Isabel, I can't tell quite because you have kind of a strong backlight. You might be cool tones, but generally speaking, if you're cool tones, think Arwen from Lord of the Rings. You have like practically blue-black hair. You have really fair skin. You have gray, blue, like kind of a pale blue or black eyes. And so you're going to want colors that pick up on those colors. If I try to wear cool colors, like especially like kind of a light mint green, I look appalling. Like it washes me out and everything. Whereas if I wear more like a kind of a dusty pink or like an orange, because I'm warm colors, I can wear those colors. Even this purple is kind of a warm purple. And so that works much better.
Well, Isabel, you really can't see her hair, which is, I mean, she's got some of the most intense hair you're going to find anywhere. And so that really is a question. I was going to ask that about Isabel, because I think most of your family has very orange, yeah, red hair. Yeah.
A few of my older siblings
few.
definitely do. Like my oldest sister and my older brother. My brother's beard is just
Oh wow.
Nice.
just red. And I also have a similar hair color to
Mhm.
his beard. If you put them next to each other,
Okay.
you can't really tell.
And so you're getting clothes passed down from your brunette sisters, and you're like, no.
Exactly. No, the two sisters I'm sandwiched between are dark hair, like very dark brown hair, and then I'm like, okay, so what can I wear? Because
Mhm.
again, it's like pinks and very like warm colors, and I'm like,
Yep.
well, okay, thanks, guys. So.
And did you have a point? So did you have a point where you were like, okay, I can't wear hand-me-downs most of the time at least, or you're just kind of like, nah.
I just kind of lived with it until I started buying my own clothes. I just lived with it. I was
You
like,
kind of
okay,
have to.
Yeah.
exactly. I was like, well, this is it. So like, I've got these sweaters. Let's make that work. So.
Yep.
And so how do you make that work? You a little humility, or are you putting some stickers on your sleeves? Or
well, because I wear my hair down a lot now, just because I know what colors I look better in now. But I'd wear my hair back, and I would just make sure my hair was, if I was wearing a pink dress, my hair was back to like not put that red and pink right next to each other, because that can look terrible. So so I would just kind of, but humility was definitely in the mix when just going through it. I was like, all right, fine, this is it. So.
And I guess humility and modesty are sometimes interconnected, but actually, this is a really good point again for this show, that I think that they don't have to be, right? And I think that's really important, because I think we've all seen plenty of people who think that they have to be interconnected, kind of, that if you're going to be modest, you got to wear a potato sack. And I imagine that everyone is agreeing that that's obviously not the case. You do need to be modest, but style it does actually matter, right? That the way you look and the way you portray yourself, you don't want to look like you're wearing a potato sack, because even if it's modest, it's still giving people an impression that's not a positive one, right? And I think that, I guess objectively there is a better, and again, if we go to the PowerPoint, there is objectively something that looks better for your body type or for your skin color. I think that's pretty interesting. And so Colleen, I guess I'd ask you, since I guess if you're now an expert on it, are you able to, or were you ever always able to go to the store and always say, this looks good, and trust yourself without getting someone else's opinion?
No, it took, I would say I only got comfortable with that maybe within the last 5 or 6 years. Yeah. So before that, like, kind of like what Isabel said, the hand-me-down stage kind of ends when you actually have your own money and you start going and buying your own clothes, and then you start experimenting a little bit more. I can't remember exactly when I first learned about the Color Me Beautiful system. I didn't invent it. It's been around since the 1970s. And honestly, you can even get like the original book from the library. If you Google it, you can find all kinds of color palettes and information. So it's pretty much free online. It's really quite interesting, and it's a very useful resource. But I think I learned about that probably in my early 20s, and then just kind of started gradually applying it. Now, pretty much I can look at it and say, yep, that works, or no, that doesn't. And I'm quite confident in my own judgment, and I've helped them, with helping other people too, but definitely was not always an expert. And like what Isabel or whoever was saying about humility, looking back through old photo albums is definitely an exercise in humility.
And so I don't know, for Aaron or Isabel, have you ever experienced that with yourselves or with someone else, like a friend? You're going clothes shopping and they come out with something and they're just like, that big smile on their face, I look so nice, and you're like, and so I mean, and if that happens, are you honest, or do you tell them, well, maybe your skin tone isn't right, or you just let them go with it?
With my sisters, I'm honest. Yeah, I think you need to be honest.
No, for sure. Like with my friends and stuff, when we go clothes shopping, we do help each other pick things out and say, oh, I think you'd look good in this. And they pick something out for you and you're like, this does not work on me. This doesn't work on anybody. I don't know who you think you're like, what you think you're doing. But yeah, no, definitely you got to be honest with them because
skinny jeans, right? Everyone on earth seems to think they look good in skinny jeans. And I think maybe one person on earth looks good in skinny jeans. I'm just going to say it out there for everybody. Skinny jeans don't look good on anybody. So don't wear skinny jeans, please. For everyone listening. Pants, we can get into later. That's a topic on its own, but I can tell you already, skinny jeans, no, not good. You got to wonder, I mean, how does this come about? How do... And I think, Colleen, you had a point about this in your PowerPoint about fashions and how they come to be. And I think it was really interesting because you said part of it used to be 50 years stretches because it was kind of went with the monarchy. Is that how it was?
Yes. So if you look at history, and this is something I only became aware of because I'm trying to write a historical fiction novel and it's taking forever, but it involved a lot of research. And so then looking more into the clothes and stuff, I was like, oh, wow, this is actually really interesting. Before the 1800s, fashion changed much more slowly. And like Kevin said, it was largely because of the tastes of kings. So like you had somebody like Louis, I think it was the 14th of France, who reigned for a long time, the Sun King who built the Palace of Versailles and all of this stuff. He had a certain taste in clothing. And so during his reign, because the French court was the arbiter of fashion pretty much for the entire civilized world, fashion followed what Louis XIV liked. And so once he died and the French Revolution came through, which was in the 1790s, then fashion started to change much more rapidly and royalty had much less of an influence on it. So if you look at the 1800s, for example, the silhouettes are pretty clearly defined pretty much every 20 to 30 years, but generally about every 20 years. From the early 1800s up until the present day, fashion has changed silhouettes in a roughly 20-year period. So even in recent memory, what people remember now, like in the early 2000s, you couldn't find anything with a puff sleeve to save your life. Okay, the early 2000s, everything was straight, the sleeves were plain, they were fitted, everything was very minimalist. Now we're starting to enter a new period in the fashion timeline, and you're starting to see puff sleeves, frills, ruffles. That stuff is coming back. It's not coming back quite as hard as it did in the 80s and 90s, but you're definitely starting to see it in stores now, whereas 10, 20 years ago you wouldn't have anywhere except maybe a secondhand shop.
I have also something to add on to it. Just kind of think like how a society can accept or reject a fashion trend, and how you're saying that happens like every 20 years. Like in the early 1900s, when Coco Chanel first came out with a pantsuit for women and it was completely rejected, then 20, 30 years later, she tries again and it becomes a trend everywhere. You see this. So that just kind of goes to show like how the society has accepted that with not that much time in between.
Totally. And it's really interesting because I think that it really runs hand in hand. The mentality of how we dress, especially in America, really is very hand in hand with the modern idea of, humanism and comfort and me first, and what everyone else sees of me doesn't matter. It's what I think of myself that matters, and who cares? It's all about me. And that's since the 1960s, maybe a little bit before. Especially in the U.S. In Europe, people don't dress as badly as in the U.S. for some reason. They have some really weird things too. But you rarely see someone walk around into a grocery store in sweatpants and whatnot here in Germany. That's a plus. Yoga pants are not as big of a thing here. These are some things that I don't miss from America. But for some reason in the U.S. that was affected more. I think because America, with everything, is just more of a roller coaster in terms of culture and politics and religion and everything. I mean, look at the religious side. There are so many more Sede Vacantes in the U.S. I think just partly because things burn hotter in the U.S. than they do over here in Europe for whatever reason. And I guess it's the same with fashion. Go ahead, Colleen.
Going back to the Europeans dress better than the Americans. A lot of it too also has to do with the fact that from the beginning, Americans have pretty much always been cheap. We want to make everything bigger and better. And whereas the Europeans see more value in let's pay for something that's quality and it's going to last. Whereas most Americans have lost that mindset and they just want cheap, practically disposable fashion. And that has contributed a lot to the, just casual, comfortable trend also.
That's a great point. And is that something that, do you ladies, I don't know who wants to answer this, is that a hard thing then? If you figure out your skin tone, your hair and stuff, is it literally hard to find good clothes, like even good quality clothes?
I'd say yes. Like the
Not
fast
really.
fashion. Well,
Go ahead,
I think
Isabel.
it depends on where you're shopping, because as someone that's buying her own clothes, living on her own. I'm living on my own for the first time. I'm buying all my own clothes. I'm paying all my own bills and everything. Bills and food come before my clothes. So I'm not going to splurge too much on a new dress for Easter or Christmas, or even just a new day-to-day dress or skirt, when I know I can get something pretty similar at Walmart or Target for a fraction of the price. And that's not a good thing, but it's a not frugal, but a more prioritize. Look, these are my different priorities. I need to focus on, like, I can't spend $60 on a new skirt. I just can't justify that. I can buy a pretty similar one at a department store for about $15-20. So I think it does, but the fast fashion that keeps coming out, it's hard to find things. Also, sometimes finding things for a good price in my colors, if I'm wanting to match it with, if I'm wanting to find a certain color, I have to really search sometimes. You have to go to several different stores. You have to look online. You have to do all of these things. But I think it can be really hard.
And Colleen, you disagree?
Well, part of it is maybe I think I'm a little older, I'm guessing, than either of you, Isabel or Erin. So it may be just that I've discovered more resources for modest clothing that also looks good over the years. And I can send you a list of that, Kevin, too, if you want to share that at the end.
For sure.
Too, because we had a ladies' fashion night here last winter. And so I talked to a bunch of people and we got together pretty much all of our go-to resources. I think to a certain extent, you do kind of have to sacrifice the idea of disposable fashion. So rather than saying, okay, I'm going to have like 6 different skirts, you might want that, maybe this one's borderline, maybe this one's too short, maybe this one is a bad color. Some of it involves just kind of learning to hold out for, okay, this A is modest, B, it actually looks good, and C, it's my colors. So, and it's good quality. So now that I've found it, I'm willing to pay a little bit more for it. But again, what I consider being what something is worth is going to differ a lot from other people sometimes, just because I used to work as a seamstress. So for me, I'm looking at something and saying, okay, this dress, which I'm buying online, it may cost $60 to $80, but that's still cheaper than it would be if I went out and bought the fabric and made it, or hired someone else to make it. That dress would easily be $200. So for me, I mean, I've kind of gotten to the point where it's like, I refuse to buy something if it needs to be altered to make it modest. I mean, there would be a couple of exceptions, but I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time or money. I have enough sewing projects. I do not need to have to be altering my own clothes. So for me to pay a little bit extra for something that is good quality, that fits, that is modest, for me, it's totally worth it to pay a little bit extra. I just don't buy as many clothes as often.
Okay.
I think I also kind of agree a little bit more with Colleen. It can be really hard to find specific things. Like if you're looking for, okay, I need a long black skirt. I mean, that's going to be easy. But if you're looking for something very specific like that, then that can be really hard. But I'm a huge thrifter. So I just go and kind of look for whatever. And it's all, really cheap. Sometimes it's hard to find good quality things. But if, you've done it enough and you kind of get comfortable, know where you're going, know what you're looking for, then it gets easier. I don't think it's so hard, but maybe that's also because I'm not a very fashionable person. I don't know my own style so well, so I kind of just go with whatever fits and I think looks good.
Okay, before Colleen, I gotta say real quick, because I have no boat in this race. I mean, I up until 10 days ago, I'm the worst dresser of all time. So I'm not a fashionista of any type, but I think it's interesting because Ina, my wife, we're finding that our way to do it now, our new way to do it, is to go and spend, just really invest, like really invest in something really nice. Like the suit coat was really expensive. I mean, truly expensive. But I figured, okay, you know what? This is how they used to do it back in the day. You know, you would buy or maybe inherit like a suit coat or two, and you just wear that thing until you patched up the elbows and the knees. I mean, really, you know, you look at your grandfather's suits, they're patched up because they wore them all the time. They had one suit coat, and that's what they spent their money on. And I think that's an interesting point in my mind, that instead of looking at it as a disposable thing, what if instead you said, yeah, I mean, you kind of hold out and you say, okay, look, in the year, I have $200 to spend on clothes. I don't know, 500, whatever it is. What if you spend 100 on a really nice thing, or a nice thing that you know you can wear all the time? I don't know if this is the right way, especially for women. I think it's not quite so simple with women as it is for men. I can buy a suit coat and it goes pretty well. But go ahead, Colleen. I kind of took your...
That's okay. That's okay. Well, and I would agree with what you're saying. There are some pieces you can do with it, kind of the classic pieces that never go out of style. Yeah, you can totally spend more money on those and it will stay in fashion for 10 years. It doesn't matter what style does, it will always be in fashion. So like a man's suit coat. You might spend $200 on a man's suit, but you can wear that suit for 10 years. You can literally wear it until it wears out. Or, you know, unless you gain like 50, 60 pounds or something and it no longer fits.
What? Just don't curse me like that, Colleen. I told Ina, I was like, so, you know, because I do, you know, my weight fluctuates, it goes in and out. I'm like, so do I need to buy 2 suits, you know, just prepare for when I'm going to gain some weight? But anyway, it's true though. It is a danger. Yeah. But it's a good, you know, if I spend a ton of money on these clothes, and I know I spend a ton of money on these clothes, I'm going to really think about that second donut, you know, in the morning. I'm like, oh man, I got to be able to wear the suit coat because I got money in it now. That's another thing. Go ahead, Erin.
Yeah. I think there's also just a certain mindset to it. If you spend a lot of money on a really nice piece of clothing, you're going to want to wear that a lot because you just invested so much into it. You'll definitely get a lot of use out of it. So that could be another thing into investing.
You're strutting around like a peacock because you're like, man, this is the first time I've looked good in 20 years. You know, that's about right. No, it's true though. Yeah, it's a revelation. I think it's really, and this is I'll segue into this because I think there's so many places we can go. We could talk for 5 hours about this conversation, but I think this is a really interesting point. And who I'll ask first? I'll ask Isabel. Isabel, what do you wear to church? What do you wear to work? And where do you wear at home? I'm putting you on the spot, but in general.
So to church, I have quite a few skirts and dresses that I just cycle through pretty much. Just a nice skirt, a nice blouse. And in the winter, it's a lot of jackets and scarves and hats. So I just dress up nicer from my day. Well, my day-to-day, I work from home. So I work from home. So the things I work in are the same things I wear at home. So I wear a lot of jeans and sweaters at home just because I wake up at 4:30 every morning and get dressed and I'm like, well, it's 4:30 in the morning. No one is going to see me for a couple hours at least. I usually only look presentable in case the mailman needs me to sign for a package. For church and stuff, I do definitely dress up. I wear nicer dresses than I would wear out with my friends. I wear the heels and so it's just a lot of that sort of thing.
So how many approximately outfits do you have? 100, 20, 10? I have no idea about this stuff, so I'm just very, very basic.
Very, very ashamedly say over 100 probably. With how many pieces of clothing I have.
All right, see, exactly. So you could have gotten a couple really, really nice things instead of 100 outfits. No. See, okay, we're making progress already. All right, Erin, I'm gonna go to you. Okay, so what do you wear to church? What do you wear to work? And what do you wear at home?
To church, probably same as Isabel, just a nice dress. I usually go thrifting for my church outfits too. A lot of hand-me-down stuff. And for work,
thrifting in America can be amazing. I mean, you can find some
yeah,
really good stuff. So that's not even a downer. Anyway, sorry.
we have a lot of big thrift stores. That's true.
Totally.
And at work, I work at a daycare, so I get down on the floor a lot. I'm playing with kids a lot. I go outside a lot. So I usually wear some comfortable pants, and then we have a work shirt. And at home, right when I get home, it's pajamas. I know I'm not going anywhere else after I get home.
All
That's
right.
it for me.
Fair enough. And so always. So you always come home and you put on pajamas.
Yeah,
That's
kind of a routine
the
now.
routine. Okay. And how many
Yeah.
outfits do you have for church?
For
Approximately.
church, 40 or 50, but a lot of those are also hand-me-downs, so not stuff that I went and bought myself.
So you're gonna have to ask Isabel to share it with you. She's
Yeah.
gonna
I'd gladly do it, Aaron.
share the love. Share the love, Isabel. All right, Colleen, it's to you. What do you wear to church? What do you wear to work? And what do you wear at home?
Well, let's see. For church, pretty much, the same as everybody else. I have some nicer dresses and nicer skirts and tops and things and sweaters that I wear for church. Some of them cross over with what I wear to work because I'm a teacher. So, like, we don't really have a real strict dress code here, but it's at least business casual or nicer. And, it has to be nice enough to wear to daily mass. So, sweaters, turtlenecks or blouses, kind of like a shell top or something. In terms of number of clothes, I'm probably up there with Isabel. Like, if you put together every possible combination, it's probably over 100. Because like you have maybe 10 or 20 skirts, but then you have more tops, and you can interchange the tops with them. You can add a sweater, so you can change it up a lot of different ways depending on the season and that sort of thing. One thing, going back to the colors again, once you start buying your clothes so that they're all in your color season, it makes the mixing and matching possibilities really open up, because all of a sudden, instead of having like 3 or 4 things and they don't really work together, all of a sudden all the clothes in your closet practically work together with a few exceptions. And so the mixing and matching, you can do a lot more with that. The other thing too that I will say about spending a lot of money on your clothes is, as you get older and your size kind of settles and you stop growing, obviously when you're a teenager and you're growing and your weight's fluctuating, whatever, you have to buy more clothes, whether you're getting them from a thrift store, hand-me-downs, whatever. Once you're an adult, and I've been, in that category now for over a decade, you find that a lot of your clothes, you're still wearing the same clothes you bought 10 years ago. So you are getting your money's worth there out of a lot of them. And then, you will go to the thrift store or to a store if there's a sale or whatever, and gradually pick up some things. One thing I will say about thrift stores, because yes, I like them, but a lot of it, whether you're able to utilize thrift stores or not, depends on what size you are and how tall you are. Because my former roommate, who's now married, she used to go to the thrift store and make out like a bandit. She would come home with bags and bags of clothes. And I mean, she would find the cutest stuff at the thrift store. But she was also short and petite and slender, whereas I'm 5'9", 6 foot in heels, broad shouldered, a bit wider, bigger. And so it was always, I maybe will find a few shirts at the thrift store, but I pretty much will never find skirts at a thrift store, whereas she would actually find skirts that were long enough and that were really nice. So it just depends on your body type a lot of the time.
Makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. And so I have to ask then, I'll ask Isabel again. I'm putting you on the spot first again. If you have 100 outfits, how do you choose? Do you close your eyes and that one?
Well, it kind of depends on what I'm doing that day. Like, if I know that I'm going to be going out with some friends after I get off of work, I know, well, okay, so I can't just wear a t-shirt and sweats all morning. I have to I don't want to spend too much time after, like, once I get off, I want to kind of be out the door. So it's kind of, I do put a little thought into it, but all of my pieces are very basic. It's very much, I can wear this sweater with this pair of jeans and I can call it good and be out the door. So it is sometimes just closing my eyes and reaching into my closet and saying, okay, this is it. This is all you've got. Like, so it does. But like I said, it does depend on the kind of what sort of day it's going to be. But yeah, for the most part, it's on Saturday evenings, I do have to sit down and decide, okay, So you have this many choices. What are you going to do? So that does take a little bit of time.
And that's the beauty of having like this nice suit coat now. That I have one nice suit coat, I've got 2 nice shirts, and I'm like, bam, you know? I don't have any stress about what I'm gonna wear. It's amazing. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Okay, Aaron, I gotta ask you. I think all the ladies here are, I know all the ladies are not married. I don't know about their single status. I'll leave that private, but I know no one here is married except for me. Aaron, I'm gonna ask you, if you were married right now, would you come home and wear pajamas? Do you think? What do you think?
Probably not, but I guess that also depends on my state in life. Like, I mean, once I'm pregnant, probably I'll probably wear pajamas all the time. You know, comfort is key. But
It's an interesting point, though. It's an interesting point. Well, what about you other two? Oh, I'll go to Colleen. What do you think? If you were married, what would you go? Would you change what you wear at home if you're married? If you're coming home to a husband, or if he's coming home to you?
If I wasn't going out to work every day, I would probably dress a little more casually at home, like more denim, for example, and more t-shirts. I have cute Strange Planet t-shirts that I don't wear to school because it's just not quite appropriate. But if I was at home, I would maybe wear something more casual like that. But I still probably wouldn't run around in pajamas unless like Aaron said, if I was pregnant and feeling miserable, then maybe. But the rest of the time, probably not.
Isabel, how about you?
Probably not, just because I'd be married and have someone else looking at me other than myself and my roommate. So,
but see that's ultimately my point is, and this is something that I've talked about recently with my wife, and we've kind of changed, because the idea that you come home and you want to be comfortable when you come home. You want to come home and you just want to have comfort. You just want to put on PJs, and that's what makes you feel good. I think that is a really modern and especially American, not just American though, because we did too here. So it's not just American. I don't want to put Americans down, but I think it is this idea of being cozy. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think coziness definitely has its place, but I think we have recently changed that when we're home together, we do dress nicer until it's bedtime. That I'm not wearing a suit coat, and I don't usually wear a suit coat at home, guys. This is just for the podcast. This is good. I wanted to look impressive for a fashion podcast, but I really do though. I have changed that. I wear long pants. I wear usually some sort of a polo shirt or something that is nicer than I had before, and it's to show respect to her, my wife, and it's to show respect in a way to myself. And I don't know if we're even right about this. Go ahead, Colleen. I'm curious to everyone's opinions, because I'm not saying this is the right way. It's just the way we've changed.
Well, and I would also say that how you dress at home, especially once you have children, has a huge impact on how your children will grow up viewing clothing. So, for example, when I was a kid, my mom wore skirts every day, all day, pretty much. I mean, unless she was maybe wearing culottes, for gardening or some messy thing. But we, as a result, we grew up wearing skirts, and we just saw it as normal. I mean, to this day, I wear skirts all day, every day, pretty much, unless I have some, dirty or perhaps dangerous thing that I have, quasi-dangerous, not that anything I do is all that dangerous, thing where I would, have to wear a looser, baggier pair of pants, or culottes or something to do something. But children, they get a mindset for what is normal very, very, very early in life. And some parents think, oh, it doesn't matter what they wear. They're 3. But it's really amazing what kids notice and what they pick up on just very, very, very early in life. And if you think, oh, well, I'm just going to start worrying about, dressing them modestly when they're 7, when they've reached the age of reason, it's really too late. There was some, I can't remember what his name was. He was one of the ancient famous Greeks. Some lady came to him and said, sir, at what age should I start training my child? And he said, well, how old is your son? And she said, oh, he's 5. And he said, madam, you're already too late.
Sure. Yeah. That's definitely, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And kids, as anyone who's been around kids, which I'm sure you all have, I mean, they soak up everything. I mean, I've got a little 2-year-old, and everything you say is just soaked up. I mean, good grief, you got to be so careful. It's unbelievable. She could, like she's sleeping right now, and she could probably hear what I'm saying, and she'll pick it up. It's just unimaginable, and it's so true that they soak up how you pray, they soak up how you talk, they soak up how you dress, and that it really strikes me when you read the lives of the saints, that they so often, not always, of course, but so often they were raised in sanctity. You know, this is one of the things they say, they were raised in the odor of sanctity, they often say, right? And it's like, okay, what is that? You know, and I'm not saying I'm a saint, for goodness sake, but I think that the idea is you give them that start, you give them that idea. Okay, we're going to try hard. You know, we're going to try to be presentable. We're going to try to be dignified, or I don't know what the word is. And I think it's a really interesting topic. And I think it's a really important one, because the question would be, maybe I'll start with Aaron on this one. Why do you wear what you wear? I mean, what is your philosophy behind your style? And this is a tough question. It's not an easy one to answer, but I mean, when you're wearing something, why do you wear it? Do you wear it because you like it? You know, what's the thought process?
I think there's a lot of things that go into it, but for me, I'm a very minimalistic dresser, I would say, especially after living in Germany for 6 months. You can only bring so much over. You only have so much to work with. So I just had a suitcase of clothes. That's all I had. So I kind of just kept, cycling through those, did a lot of different combinations with the few things that I had. And I think just comfort and minimalism is really helpful for that. But another thing, just kind of going off what we were talking about before, how your kids look up to everything you do, especially when they're so young. And I mean, you're their first example. The best that you can do is the starting point for your kids. And don't you want to give them the best that they can have? I mean, your ceiling is their floor. That's
yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And again, every little detail from what you wear too. And so Isabel, I guess I'd ask you next time, what's your philosophy behind what you wear?
I usually go for comfort not comfort like in the, I want to dress comfortably, but I want to feel comfortable in what I'm wearing. I want to feel like what I'm wearing isn't drawing me into, foremost, isn't drawing me into sin or anyone else into sin. Am I going to be able to do a wide variety of things in this outfit? And will I feel, and sounds so cliche. I was going over if you were to ask me this question earlier, I was going over this question in my head, and it sounds so cliche to say, but do I feel confident in this? Do I feel like I am presenting myself in the best way possible to everyone around me? Like,
right.
is that
okay.
something that is happening when I'm wearing this? Or at least a little bit, is that happening? And so it is very much, do I feel comfortable and am I confident in this? And if those two things are, and obviously modesty, but if those two main, first things are checked off, I can pretty much guarantee my clothes are modest after that. I don't really own anything that could be deemed immodest usually, but it's are those things important, done? And if they are, I call it good.
And before I let you answer, Colleen, I think again we could go over modesty forever, but it is the primary point, because if you don't follow that, we're leading others into sin or ourselves into sin. So I think that everyone listening, we're not talking that much about it, because everybody agrees that is the number one thing. Of course, you have to be modest, as Isabel said. I mean, that's the first step. Is it modest? And then what? And I think we all agree with that. But go ahead, Colleen.
Well, and I just want to say what you were saying, Isabel, about, you want to feel good in it. It's psychologically proven that you feel more confident when you know you look good. And I know for myself, it makes a huge difference in my mood if I know I look good that day. And, there's some days when, I'm tired or just in a hurry or whatever, and I don't put a lot of thought into it. But I'll notice even, if I'm wearing colors that, I don't like as much, I don't feel as, my mood, isn't quite as good that day, because I'm just, I don't feel as good. I'm not as happy about how I look. We've all had days, you're having a bad hair day or whatever. And, you just aren't happy with how you look. You don't feel as good as when, even if you're dressed comfortably. And for me, I'll admit, I'm big on being comfortable in clothes that look good. Like as a dressmaker, my biggest pet peeve literally was, this, girls, you've probably experienced this, guys, maybe not so much, but you buy a dress or something and it has the stupid little sleeves where it's like you can put it on and you can stand there like a little nutcracker doll, but you literally you can't even lift your arm high enough to touch the top of your head without feeling like you're gonna pop the seam back here. I hated that. And so for me, personally, I refuse to buy anything that makes me feel like that because I am so sick of it. And I just won't do it in anything I make and anything I buy. I'm like, I have to be able to move within a reasonable range. And I want to look good, but I also don't want to be, suffering discomfort from my clothing. My discomfort threshold is fairly low.
And you say something really interesting that's another, it's one of the topics we brought up before, but you say when you know you look good. Mm-hmm. And so my question would be, how do you know you look good? And I think, I'm not saying you can't, I'm just really curious about this because we all know the person who wears, I don't know, a polka dot dress or whatever it is. Well, I guarantee you they looked in the mirror and wow, I'm looking fine today. And it's like, oh, goodness gracious, go put on a sweater or something. So I mean, and this is really the ultimate question for me when I had to talk with the guys, and I think it's with the girls a bit at least. What are you basing that on? Your feelings or an objective idea of what looks good? Colleen, go ahead.
For me, at this point, it's definitely more scientific and less subjective. It's like I'll hit on a really nice color combination that for me is warm colors that kind of perks up. If you have the right colors, they make you look good. If the fit is flattering, if it makes you, look slim and trim and it looks good, you don't feel like you're adding 35 pounds, by the clothes you're wearing. That's always a plus. Some days you just have a good combination. Of course, some of that depends on, what's currently clean and available. Sometimes, all the good things are in the laundry. So you're stuck wearing the things that aren't perhaps quite as flattering, but, you don't necessarily have to look dumpy though, even if it's not an outfit that you necessarily love.
Yeah. And what do you, maybe I'll go to Isabel. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, how do you know you look good?
I honestly half the time don't know. I just,
please.
Pretty much. I'm like, well, I think this looks okay. These colors look nice together and they work. So I am usually just like, okay, this will do. I think this is all right. It's not orange and pink. So I think that's fine. But I honestly do always ask for, my roommate and I are good friends. So I ask her, does this look all right? When I'm getting ready for math, I'm like, does this shirt work with this sweater? I'm not crazy, right? This works, right? And she'll always tell me, Isabel, go change that. Work on it. But
your roommate sounds like me.
She's I love her very much, but sometimes I'm like, can you be a little nicer about it? But it is asking for people's opinions also. Does this look right on me? Does this sweater work with how I'm putting it on? And it is I think it's trial and error, is knowing when you look good. I don't think half the time I'm like, okay, it works. And it's not if I'm not trying to draw attention to myself, I think usually it's okay.
And Erin, do you have same? Yeah.
Yes, I do have something to add. Also, kind of off what both of you were saying before, if you are comfortable in something, you will be confident. You will walk with an air of confidence, and that is an attractive quality. People will, then you can look good. You can know that you look good if you are confident in what you're wearing and you feel good in what you're wearing. It's not too tight. You can move around. You can be graceful and dignified, and it looks good.
But see that's I see what you're saying, and I think if you know it's graceful and dignified, then you can say, okay, this is something that I can confidently wear. But I guess how do you come to that? How is your judgment? How do you say, yeah, you know what, this is graceful, or is it just something that is instinctive? Go ahead, Colleen. Maybe you got the answer for this.
Well, I would say it goes in some ways down to the bare basics of fashion, and that's basically you have one pattern per outfit. So generally speaking, the easiest way to make sure that you don't look horrible is to make sure that you have only really one statement piece in the outfit. So if I'm wearing a striped shirt, I'm not going to wear stripes anywhere else in that outfit. Or if I'm wearing a flower pattern, I'm not going to wear another flower pattern somewhere else in the same outfit. So generally speaking, you want to have kind of your pattern or your color, and then have everything else be either neutral or solid colors or something that isn't going to clash with it. That's really the baseline for making sure that an outfit doesn't look horrible.
I think Erin's eating her computer right now.
My phone is about to die.
Erin,
She's gone.
okay. It's because were you hungry or?
Just a quick snack break.
No, all good. No, yeah, that's interesting, and I think that, and I know that Colleen, you mentioned, or Erin, I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to mention about that, because I don't mean to shoot you down. I think you're right. I mean, totally. If you feel the grace and stuff, I truly don't quite understand, because I mean, for example, I don't base anything I'm wearing off of any opinion or feeling I have. I am an idiot. I mean, I have absolutely no clue, and I've proven that for 32 years up until now. But I can say, I think I can objectively say, okay, this has worked for, I don't know, 100 years, and so I think I can pretty well say it's going to work now. And so I don't know if it's not so simple with women, because styles really go much, like this. Colleen, go ahead. Or Isabel, go to you. Colleen had it last.
I talk a lot. Sorry.
Like how quickly trends are changing and how quickly we're seeing these trends changing is because every summer girls are dressing differently. What's in style is changing every time, like every year. It seems like you can't keep up sometimes. So it's very much like, does this work? Will this work for forever? We don't know. We're just going with it, I think. So it's definitely, I feel like it's so much trial and error sometimes.
Okay, Erin, and then we'll go to Colleen.
I do think that it can be a little subjective, because I do know some people will have different styles with maybe what they would wear to church. But I do think if you are comfortable in it, then you can know that you look good. And I don't think there's anything vain about that. Even St. Thomas Aquinas says, in moderation, you should try to, be presentable, to look nice. So.
100%. And that's a great point, Erin, because I think, sorry again, Colleen, but it's a great point because I think that so many men, especially, I don't know women, but I know men, they think, first of all, to look nice is a feminine quality. To dress nicely is not a manly thing to do, which is the dumbest mindset. And I had it for years. I'm not going to waste my time on that. I don't think that's important. That's not for me. I'm going to go wear whatever I want and whatever I feel good in. And the idea is, as you say, moderation, you should look good because you are trying to show who you are. Who am I? And as Catholics, especially, we need to show our example forth. We are the light of the world. So if we look like a bunch of sacked potatoes, then, well, yeah, it's not giving a great light to Catholics. And it's absolutely the truth. So that's a really good point. But okay, finally, Colleen, go ahead. 10 minutes later.
I was just going to say, no, that's okay. I was just going to say, in terms of what Erin was saying about, dressing well, it is a favor to other people. It's technically an act of charity to dress well because other people take pleasure, and not in a bad way, but other people prefer and they enjoy to see you when you look good. Not in a sexualized way, not in an immodest way in any way, but just, they would much rather look at somebody who's pleasant to look at than, the sack of potatoes effect. And I would say that in this way, in this sense too, the fashion industry has been kinder to men than it has been to women because the fashion industry knows that most men don't care. And so therefore menswear in general is designed so that it's much harder to get it wrong. So for example, if you go to the menswear section at a large department store, you will not see striped shirts and polka dot shorts or trousers displayed next to each other. Instead, you will see perhaps some patterned shirts, but all the pants in that section will be solid colored, so that, you know, the guy who's running in there to shop, he says, shirt, pants, chances are whatever he grabs is going to look okay together. They do this on purpose because they know that men hate shopping in general, and they know that men don't care. So, you know, while you might occasionally, you know, pull something like, you know, plaid shorts with a Hawaiian shirt, and everyone who sees you just kind of goes, oh, you know, there are just fewer options to do that with menswear, because the majority of menswear, the bottoms are solid colored. And if there is any kind of pattern, it's in the shirt or the tie. So they purposely made it fairly simple for you.
I'm trying not to be offended by you saying pretty much we're a bunch of idiots, but I can because I know we're kind of a bunch of idiots. So okay, and so
that I have 4 brothers and a dad who hates to shop for clothes.
Yeah, I hate it. But again, guys who are listening, this isn't the show for you. So any guy who's lasted this long, it's only because we have 3 attractive ladies. It's not because of the content of the show. But if you're still listening, go buy a nice suit that you never have to worry about anything ever again. It's amazing. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. And I want you to think about it while I do a short little plug. And I'm going to ask you all to think, and then I'm going to go one by one and ask you your answer. So the question is, if you could go back to any decade for fashion, what decade would it be? And it could go. You can go to the togas if you want. I don't really care anytime you want, but I don't know if you want a toga. But you see what I mean? Probably you're probably looking at the 20th, 21st centuries. But think about it for a second while I tell everyone to, again, if you enjoyed this show, please comment, I suppose, on YouTube, subscribe. It helps us out. If you're commenting saying, if you agree, disagree with something, what do you think about fashion? What do you wear? If you're sitting on your couch wearing sweats, you don't need to tell us about that. Dominique mentions that I shouldn't bash on polka dots, which I'm sorry, that's a good point. That was a little harsh on polka dots. I'm sure with a proper outfit, polka dots are fine. I'm not a polka dot hater, so YouTube, don't ban us. I am fully equal rights for all sorts of different outfit themes. But again, please like, share, subscribe. I'm actually going to attach Patreon to this, and that's simply because we have some new and hopefully exciting things coming up where we want to do some simulcasts with Father Zepeda and his platform, which I guess the show is kind of a part of, kind of not. But we want to do some simulcasts, and in order to do that, I needed to get an upgraded edition of a couple of software platforms, which costs a bit of money. So if you want to go ahead and support the show, literally, you can give me $1 for it. Give me $1 over on Patreon. It's like $1 a year for all of our mothers out there listening. If you all give us $1, I'll get $10. And hey, you know, I'm going to be good for the programs that I need. So I'll attach that in the show notes. I'm also going to attach the PowerPoint that Colleen was nice enough to send. It's really fascinating. Truly, again, as a guy, most of it's Chinese, but I think that as a woman, it's going to be very helpful and useful. Okay, so we're back, and who should I start with? I'm going to start with Erin because she's kind of like the little sister who was over here for 6 months. So Erin, what do you think? What's your preferred decade in terms of fashion?
I don't know how savvy I am on which decades are which, but I think it's the 1950s.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's the 1950s, where you have the skirts that go past the knee, the kind of housewife. I don't know what
Grace Kelly, pretty much anything she ever wore. Yeah.
And a little bit like pre-Audrey Hepburn. I feel very feminine. It's nice. It's flowy. I like that kind of style.
Okay, Isabel?
Probably, I agree with Erin. Like the 40s and 50s, you could basically predict what you were going to wear in a day. Like it was very, very just. Like Erin said, very feminine, very nice, very clean looking kind of silhouette for everything. So, yeah.
Colleen, what do you think?
For me, my favorite decade is probably actually the 1870s. That was when they had the early bustle dresses. The bustles weren't too ridiculous at that point. They were just kind of cool looking. A lot of the dresses had a little bit of a train. I just have liked the overall look of that period, the early 1870s, not the later 70s and definitely not the 80s, but the 1870s I really like.
So is that like that's the Victorian. That's already Victorian, yeah.
It's late Victorian. So this is what happened right after the Civil War. So during the Civil War, you have the huge Scarlett O'Hara dresses. You know, they're like a mile long, and the dresses basically.
You don't like that?
No, it's honestly the dresses were annoying back then. The 1870s dresses are nicer. They're not quite as huge. The skirt goes from being round to more of an oval shape. It's actually pretty flat at the front and the sides, and most of the volume is towards the back. I don't know. I've seen a lot of historical examples of the dresses, and I like them. So
that's interesting. Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think that I'm glad that there's a difference, because I mean, glad and not, because I guess a point I wanted to make that I think most traditional women would say the 1940s and 50s, because I think my opinion is that objectively it was a better style. It was a much nicer looking style, and I think the 1870s were. I don't know it obviously as well, but I assume it was nicer than today, when you have people wearing, you know, I mean, geez, what they wear today is you can't even talk about. You know what I mean? Short shorts and tight jeans and these things that are absolutely objectively ugly, which is, I guess that's a whole other topic. I mean, I mean, I guess we could talk about that forever, but the whole idea of, hey, I'm going to look ugly and sexualized, cool, you know, feminine power, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, it's so unbelievable. You can't even express it. Yeah. But that's interesting though, and I think, go ahead.
Oh, and that's not to say that. Sorry, Erin, you go first.
You can go ahead.
Oh, okay. And that's not to say I don't like the 1940s. It's just, you know, I have several time periods that I like. I would say the 1870s are probably my favorite of like the last 200 years. I also like the 1910s, the 1940s, 50s, you know, whereas as opposed to like the 1920s, which I objectively do not like. So.
I just thought it was interesting that me and Isabel both picked kind of a similar, the same decade. And I was wondering if this is the same for you guys. When you're dressed in like a skirt or a dress, you feel very feminine. Whereas if you're wearing pants, like, I know I'm ready to go work outside, and I'm ready to go play with kids all day at work, or I don't know if you guys feel that difference as well.
No, I definitely feel that difference. Like, the other day on Sunday, I wore a skirt that I felt comfortable wearing out just to run a few errands after mass before I had to pick someone up. And it was like, oh, it's so flowy and it's so nice and it's so pretty. And you do feel just, I don't like saying, like, I'm not sure I don't like saying this, but you do feel prettier. You feel more feminine. You feel more...
But that's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
But society kind of tells you it is. That's an amazing thing. I think there's these weird things in our minds. It's like, you know, oh, should I look pretty or should I look more like a man? I think that's really, for some reason, what the world's trying to tell women, which is bonkers. Or should I look like a man, or should I look like a woman, you know, that's doing terrible things out on the streets? I mean, I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And it's just like, what are we trying to tell the world that who we are? And it's like, no, you're a woman. You should look feminine, and you should look pretty as a feminine. You know, that totally makes sense. And and I think it's absolutely also in our nature. I see it with my little 2-year-old. I mean, she goes around these days wearing this little tiny purse that my wife just got, like this little purse, and she's just all the time, you know, just has to have it and drag it around the house and wears it over her shoulder in this very, very feminine way. It's so funny and it's so cute. And it's just like, you know, I think there is that natural urge to be feminine. And I mean, why on earth does the world tell us otherwise? And it's because, well, I think it's from the devil. It's like, why are men told that dressing up nice and looking good is girlish? It's the same thing. I think it's straight from the devil. It's straight from modernism, truly. Colleen?
Well, and I think there's a lot of, I don't know exactly where this idea came from, but there's this idea that you can't be comfortable and you can't go and do a lot of things in a skirt. And as someone who grew up wearing skirts almost every day, I mean, for a long time, I mean, probably until I was 18 or 20, I mean, I could have counted on both hands the times in my life where I wore pants. And I mean, or even on one hand, they were not very many. And part of it too, that just, I look horrible in pants, objectively horrible in pants. So I don't wear them in public really, because I mean, really ever. I mean, there may have been 1 or 2 times when, you know, I had a sufficient reason to, but I mean, a lot of people don't realize that you can tailor the kind of skirt that you're wearing to the activity you're doing. I mean, obviously you're going to wear a very different skirt for bike riding or, going hiking somewhere than you would, if you're, going to church or even just for teaching here.
Right, and I agree that you can dress like you can wear a skirt doing most activities. I've done intense hikes with nuns. They're full habit, and I'm wearing sweats because I'm a baby and I can't do that. But I also think that it is more modest sometimes to wear. If I know, Aaron, you'll remember this from when we were in high school together. Bishop had us wear like basketball shorts, and he told us that you should wear basketball shorts or like sweats to PE because we're playing football, we're playing kickball, we're playing baseball, we're playing these running games where it would not necessarily on the church property be modest to be wearing a skirt at that point. While doing that activity, it wouldn't necessarily be modest. And I know this isn't a modesty like discussion, but it would just not be proper to be wearing a skirt at that time. And I definitely have carried that through into my adult life, where if I know that so and so is going to be here, I like, meaning like a religious or someone more traditional than who I usually am with, I'll try to wear a skirt because it's just more respectful to them than it is to wear a pair of pants.
Aaron?
And as I was growing up, we were talking about our parents and our mother's example, and we were converts. So my mom would wear pants all the time, and I kind of grew up with that, and I had 4 older brothers for however long, so I wore pants all the time. And then I got little sisters, and I'm the oldest sister, and so then I was kind of the example, and I was the one choosing, like, I don't know, I was the one who all my sisters borrowed the clothes from then. But I don't agree that pants are immodest. I mean, as long as you have like a good cut, you're not wearing skinny jeans or something that is obviously, showing your figure and is obviously accentuating like certain areas, and your eyes look at certain things, that's what they're for. But as long as you have like a good cut and you can move and they aren't tight, you can move around, run around, and they aren't tight in any areas, I don't believe that they are immodest.
Well, and I think that Colleen's PowerPoint has a point about that. I'd like you to comment on this. And again, we're totally allowed to disagree on these things. I think we're not moral or fashion authorities. None of that. Okay, Colleen's probably the closest because she wrote a paper on it, but it doesn't mean she's right. It doesn't mean she's right. All right, but go ahead, Colleen. What do you have to say about that?
Well, in a way, I agree in that I do think there are definitely instances where it is more modest, or in cases better for safety purposes, especially to wear pants. With Kevin, I would say I agree that there is absolutely no reason though to ever wear skinny jeans or leggings as pants. That look is just awful. Although I would say though, one thing to be cautious of is in making that caveat that yes, there are occasionally times when it is better or actually more modest to wear loose cut pants. A lot of people try to take that and make it a blanket statement, say, oh, well, pants are fine, I should be able to wear pants anywhere. Whereas for me personally, I would say, do you have a reason to be wearing pants, and do you have enough of a reason to be wearing pants? And I'll say this because I was just in Florida over Christmas break to see my brother and his wife who live down there. And we had gone out somewhere to eat. And as we were getting out of the car, we happened to see these 2 women walking down the sidewalk. And I wish I had gotten a picture. I was not fast enough because we were behind them and I could have taken it and it would have been weird. But these 2 women were walking down the sidewalk. And I'm like, this is the perfect visual of this whole, pants are modest or a modest debate, because there were 2 women walking along and they both looked like they were, maybe in their mid to later 20s, early 30s at the most. And the woman on the right was wearing, the typical skinny jeans. They looked horrible. The woman on the left was wearing, it was some kind of like a pantsuit jumper thing. She had a coat on over it, so it was a little hard to see. But the legs were like so full. They were practically like, I don't know, gaucho pants or palazzo pants or something. And I'm like, okay, if, trad women who are saying, oh, pants aren't immodest, why don't you wear pants like the woman on the left? I'm like, sure, I have absolutely no objections. Go ahead, wear pants like that. They're not immodest because they're loose. Whereas in my experience, at least, when I encounter a lot of trad women who are saying, yes, women should be able to wear pants, pants aren't immodest, what they want and what they mean is skinny jeans. And that's that's why I tend to balk at the idea that, I don't generally go around saying, yeah, oh yeah, women can wear pants. I think that it's necessary to make, a distinction that if you're going to be wearing pants, they need to be looser cut, like say carpenter cut, and maybe a few sizes technically big, rather than skinny jeans, if you have a legitimate reason. Because I mean, honestly, I grew up on a farm. I mean, there were some farm chores that we did that we wore pants for because it was either, dangerous, or it was just, working with hay. It was super itchy. Or, we'd go pick blackberries. You would have gotten torn to pieces if you wore a skirt, not to mention stuck out in the back 40 in the blackberry bramble, if you had worn a skirt. But just in general, does the average woman need to wear pants to run to the supermarket? No. Does the average woman need to wear pants at work? Depending on your job, not really. And so that's just something I encourage people to push for wearing skirts and to stand up for it a little bit. Because honestly, even if you bring up that you wear skirts because of your religion in the first job interview that you have with the company, they cannot discriminate against you. I was a business major. Religion is a protected category. So, and honestly, I think more people should try this with working on Sundays and holy days too. I am required by my religion to take Sundays and, these other 6 holy days, depending on what country you live in, off of work. And if you mention that in the very first interview, they cannot legally discriminate against you. They cannot refuse to hire you because of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think, that's a really good point. And I think we are too easily swayed into giving in on matters of morality and things that you can work on Sunday if you have to, but what does that mean? What does
really
have to mean? Right. And so I'm going to kind of add on to your point, Colleen, because I think it's really good. And so it really comes down to, again, one of my main questions. Why do you wear what you wear? And I have a story. We ate, I don't know, this last summer or spring. It must have been summer. We were at a restaurant at a lake. Aaron actually may have been there. And there these 2 women walk by, and both attractive young women, I don't know, in their 20s. And they looked like they're friends. And one had a dress, like a I don't know what the texture was or whatever, but to her ankles, sleeves down to here. And her friend had short shorts and a t-shirt. And okay, one of them is, sexualized, I guess dressing in order to get attention that way. But I can tell you absolutely 100%, the one with the dress looked so much better. I mean, like this idea of I need to show off my body. First of all, you better have a really good body, even for that to make any sense. I'm sorry, but if for any sense at all, even for practical reasons, you actually have to look good in it, which most don't. I mean, 99% don't. So the 1% that does, okay, it's immodest. So again, out the window. But most people just don't even look good in it. And even for those that are attractive in it, it's only sexual. It's not a nice thing to look at. Your eyes are not like you don't think, wow, that looks cool. That's nice. And the woman in the dress truly looked fashionable, not just nice and modest, but it was like, wow, she looks good. She looks someone who's graceful, someone who looks like she could have been in the 1950s. And that's because it is a timeless fashion. It is something that lasts, and it lasts because it's modest, and because, as Colleen said at the beginning of the show, it is objectively, there are things that are cuts and whatnot that work. And so I think the question I have is, why would you wear pants in public? Why? Well, I mean, I understand if you would rather be comfortable than to leave an impression on people. But I think it's something that I mean, and I know I'm an idiot guy, but I think it truly changed my perception last time when I had this conversation with the 2 guys, because the question with them was, okay, why do we set our expectations for ourselves so low? Why do we say, yeah, I can go to church in jeans, so I'll go to church in jeans? And I mean, truly, so many people think that way. Why? Why do we think that way? Why don't we set it's so much higher and say, yeah, you know what? Who looked really good all the time was Grace Kelly. What was Audrey Hepburn? They looked amazing, and they looked graceful. Why don't we try to look like that in public all the time? I don't know if anyone has an answer to that, or has a defense of wearing jeans in public. Colleen?
Well, one thing I would at least say, as opposed to wearing jeans in public on a general basis, and it kind of goes back to what you said about how 99% of women don't realize how bad they look in pants. And what they don't realize is that a skirt, especially one that isn't tight, covers a multitude of figure flaws. So many women, they want to lose weight on their lower half or their legs or wherever, and they don't realize that by wearing pants, they're just drawing attention to their problem areas because they're on display for everyone to see. Whether they're wearing tight, or looser pants at all, you still see a lot more of their body. You still see those extra pounds. You see those rolls. You see those wrinkles. Whereas if they wore a skirt that just kind of skimmed over and fell, no one knows. It's like instant camouflage, and they would automatically look a lot slimmer just because they were covering that up. And I say that, I used to work with a lot of women who would wear pantsuits because I taught at a college, and their a pantsuit is going to be looser than skinny jeans, but still I would look at some of these women, several of whom were a little heavier, and I just think, you would look so much better in a skirt because I wouldn't see your stomach bulging out and your bottom. I wouldn't see all of the bulges. It would just be covered, and you would look so much better, and no one would be noticing all of this weight you have.
Right. I don't know if either of you two, because I don't know if you two wear jeans or if you wear pants or if you is there an argument against it? I'm not saying I'm right. I mean, truly, this is a brand new idea for me. 2 weeks old. This is a 2-week-old idea of setting my personal standard higher than it was. And so I mean, I really, am I right or am I taking it too far? Is it an extreme?
I definitely do wear pants. I don't wear skinny jeans and I don't wear jeans because they're uncomfortable. So why would I want to do that? But, I think it's also something that's like, maybe my opinion will change on this. I think I'm pretty open-minded to this. Obviously I don't wear anything immodest. I wear like loose fitted pants and nothing that hugs me anywhere that it shouldn't be. So I think what I wear isn't immodest. Maybe it's just what I've been comfortable in my whole life and that's why I wear it. Maybe it's something I fell into, something that's easy, maybe. I don't even know my own defense for it really. Maybe it's just what I know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in defense of pants this isn't a good defense, I'll say that right off the bat, but it's become so normal that wearing, and I do notice the difference that how I get treated by everybody in society when I wear a skirt, but pants.
Wait, sorry, real quick. Negatively or positively?
Positively.
Okay.
Usually men hold doors open for me longer.
Okay.
Get smiles more and I get nods from other, like this is something that I'm sure maybe the other two ladies have noticed too. Like you get nods from other women wearing skirts. It's a little bit of like we're in this with each other. Like I got your back kind of thing. But the jeans, I wear jeans for the most part, pretty much in my day-to-day life. But it's the kind of being able, because I've noticed that I get noticed more when I'm wearing a skirt, it's I can hide in this pair of pants. Like I can kind of be part of the background. Like no one is going to, I don't mind, like it's not that I don't mind that no one holds doors open for me. It is that I don't mind that, but it's I don't mind not getting noticed. I don't mind this is just, I am just not part of society, but I am just in the rest of the crowd.
Aaron?
So I think.
No.
Sorry.
Aaron. Okay, yeah, Aaron.
After Sunday, one day, and I was still wearing my full church outfit, I went to go fill up my gas tank, and a guy got out of his car, came over to me, and told me that he appreciates that I'm dressed this way. He appreciates that. So that was just one thing that kind of stuck with me.
Cool. Colleen, good.
I know, sorry, I never shut up.
No worries. I don't either.
I would say, going what you said, Isabel, I think a lot of the reason why a lot of, traditional women, quote unquote, of whatever stripe, whether they're sedevacantist, SPX, whatever, I think a lot of what you said has to do with why a lot of trad women do wear pants on a general basis as opposed to skirts. They feel that wearing a skirt makes them stand out too much. And honestly, I mean, yes, there is some truth to that yes, people will notice you more when you're wearing a skirt. And especially if like you said, Aaron, like if pants are what you grew up wearing, that you wore pants all the time, that's what you're used to wearing. And so wearing a skirt, you feel self-conscious a little bit because it's something different. And I think what a lot of people, sorry, let me rephrase that. I think a lot of women think that they're drawing more attention to themselves when in reality, think about it. If you're at the store, those people are seeing you once. They're going to have to see you 5 or 6 times wearing a skirt before they even notice that, oh, she wears skirts all the time. But if you're wearing a skirt and you look good, their first thought looking at you is going to be, oh, she looks nice, rather than, oh, she's dressed so modestly, like they would if they saw, the potato sack lady walking by. So I think as long as you're dressed well enough, it isn't any more noticeable to wear a skirt, as long as you still blend into kind of the general look, into the general trend of, looking good. You're fairly fitting with the fashion. You're not standing out too much. And
something that this is a little bit off, but like something that Dominique just put in the comments. I was just reading that, and that's exactly what I mean. She said that people ask, why are you dressed up so fancy? Aren't you cold? Like, that is exactly, like, that is it. It is don't talk to me about what I'm wearing, please. Like, I don't want to, I'm comfortable. Like, please, like, I'm in a skirt, and I'm used to seeing women in skirts because that's what I did grow up with. Is at our church, women always wore skirts picking us up from school, like our moms did, and at the church, at their houses, I wore skirts and dresses for a lot of when I was younger, and then we started wearing pants and stuff. But like Dominique is saying, it's drawing the kind of attention, what did she say? And kind of draws me away from wanting to wear them. The skirts, the attention that they bring kind of pushes it away, because so many people in society aren't used to that. They're not used to seeing women dressed nicely on a day-to-day basis. But
isn't that a beautiful thing? I mean, like we talked about this with the guys. If the guys go walk through Munich and they're dressed in a full suit and a hat like Christian wears, they get a lot of attention. They do, and then people look at them. But people really look at them not in terms of, what's this guy about? What's he been smoking? It's more like, wow, this guy really, he really put in trouble and effort and he's traditional. It truly does. It actually, the first word, I bet you, the first word that pops into mind besides maybe, are your legs cold, is, traditional, is tradition. And I think that's really true because it is traditional. It is absolutely, it lasts forever. And it has been. You can wear the same outfit that was worn in the 1940s and 50s. 1870s, maybe not every day, but maybe. But I mean, it depends on the occasion. But the 1950s, you could wear it to a gas station, and you might get a comment. But the comment, I guarantee you, as Isabel said, it's always going to be positive.
And and maybe that is something that young women like my age and a little older and stuff should probably, and actually every woman, maybe that's something that they should start thinking about, is that you're not getting negative feedback from this, so why are you self-conscious? I
tell you what, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk with all of my guy friends that I know all around the world. I want to say, hey, if you see a woman wearing a dress, say some nasty things about her so that she's not overthinking it. I'm kidding.
We're overthinking it. We're thinking.
Right. Sure.
But seriously, how many times have we gone out and wearing a skirt or a dress and gotten negative comment? Like, I don't think I ever have, which is a very good thing for me, at least. I don't know about anybody else, but for me, that's good for me, honestly. Like, kind of, I'm winning. But how many times have we gone out? And this is kind of arguing against myself, but how many times have I gone out wearing jeans and gotten some nasty comment? So I did argue against myself and my stand.
You walked exactly into my trap, Isabel. Thank you. No, but seriously though, I mean, truly seriously, that's the main reason I wanted to do these podcasts with the men and the women, is for myself, totally for myself too, to think, why do we wear what we wear? Why at home? Why do I wear what I wear? If my wife's here, if I'm at the grocery store, if I'm at church, why? And I think that this is the trap of modernism in the modern world, that they want us not to think we should do it because society does it. Why? I mean, I just do it because he does it and she does it. And I mean, I think we should, as good people, as traditionalists, as Catholics, we should think of everything we do. Why do we do this? Why do I wear this? Why do I say that? I mean, every action we take. And I think if we started to do that, I think we would act differently, and I dress differently. I mean, truly, and I think that's my main point. And I can't tell any woman what to wear, for goodness sake. But if we think every day, okay, why am I wearing what I'm wearing? I think as Catholics we'll move forward. Colleen?
Sorry, me again. Well, one thing I want to say in relation to what you were saying, Isabel, is like what you were saying, the nasty comments that you got, sometimes wearing jeans. There are two examples that I will bring up quite often. When I was in college, I went to school with a girl. She was, Novus Ordo Catholic. She lived a few miles from me. Sometimes we rode to school together. And she pretty much, wore the modern uniform. She wore skinny jeans, sneakers, low cut tops, not really horrible, but still, low cut, whatever. She used to get nasty comments all the time. And she would even complain to me like, why did they treat you so differently? And I remember trying to explain to her, I don't know if I quite got it through because, I was wearing skirts, I would occasionally wear culottes to college, but not very often. And, people are same thing, like you said, holding doors, being nice, complimenting me, never got a nasty comment the entire time I was at college. Whereas she was in a lot of the same classes, we were in with the same people, and she was getting nasty comments right and left. And the other example that I use is Muslim women. When we see the Muslim women, even the ones who just wear the hijab, okay, I'm not talking about the ones who wear the full-on burqa and everything. I'm just talking about the Muslim ones who wear the little headscarf. If they can do that and, stand out a little bit for the sake of their religion, can't we do the same for our religion? Like, what are we afraid of? Like, if Muslim women can wear their hijabs and even their burqas, you don't see them too much around here, but I used to live in Michigan, so you saw burqas more often. If they're brave enough, so to speak, to do that for their religion, then why can't we stand up for wearing skirts at work? And, and I have nothing against denim skirts. Honestly, when I'm not working, I wear denim skirts a lot. I like denim skirts, and even, guys wearing jeans, I'm not necessarily opposed as long as, they don't look real sloppy. I think you can dress jeans up or down, whether it's a skirt or jeans for a guy. But with, the Muslim women and their hijabs, if they can stand up for it, because of my religion, then we can play the religion card too. And honestly, we probably are attracting far less attention than we think we are.
It's so true. And I had a comment on the men's podcast that and someone asked, like, well, the Jehovah's Witnesses dress like that, don't you think that makes it a little weird? And it's like, what are you talking about? Just because they do it, so they dress nicely. He's like, oh, I don't want to look good because the Jehovah's Witnesses look good. Oh man, if I wear a white shirt and a tie, I'll look like a Mormon. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to look like garbage because I don't want to look like a Mormon. I mean, it's a weird thing, and again, it's this trap of overthinking it. It's just you're overthinking it. It's, again, with guys, I don't want to dress because women dress nicely, and I'm not a woman. I'm a man, so I want to wear sweats and a tank top. It's like, dude, no, it's not manly, and it only has been considered so for the last 10, 20 years. And it looks terrible, and it's unless, again, okay, if you're Brad Pitt and have the perfect body, maybe you can pull it off. But again, most guys can't either, so it's like, come on, it's not. And as Colleen said, of course, our first thought should be, portraying ourselves in our faith. It should be. I mean, we are Catholics, and we should be absolutely proud of that, and should show that, like Batman signals up into the sky, which I think, again, it's something that most Catholics don't want to do, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But it's also practical. And again, I think if you read this PDF from Colleen, I think it does make sense. It makes sense. And there's so many examples. And I know men and women listening to this or watching this, they've seen examples of people walking by, of one in a dress and one in short shorts or something. And even take the modesty out. You can just say, okay, one is objectively nicer. It just is. And so why don't we just want to dress in something that we know absolutely objectively looks better? Mm-hmm. And I think in the end, that's kind of the question. And we're already at an hour 30. This is pretty incredible. This is like the longest podcast ever. I'm going to get we're going to get about 50 views in about 10 minutes of watch time. No, I think it's been really fantastic. And I think we didn't at all go through Colleen's PowerPoint. We could do a whole nother show on it, honestly. I mean, it's really good. I mean, there's really some there's some really good points that I think we could even argue with. I'd love to hear the other girls' opinions on it, because I think there are points that I'm sure not everyone agrees of, okay, does this go with this? But, honestly, maybe I'll save that. I'll let my sister or wife do that podcast and talk about the nitty gritty of, okay, does orange work with brown, or, whatever. But I've actually enjoyed it more than I expected. I was half excited and half dreading this podcast, but I'd say the excitement it won out in the end, fortunately. But I don't know if anyone has any last words. It's not really a topic that has any last words, but I'll give anyone a chance. Anyone, raise your hand. Last words. Aaron, go for it.
If you do link Colleen's PowerPoint, I encourage everyone to go look through that. I also just reread one of the books that you mentioned in it, Dressing with Dignity. And I've recommended that book to so many people. That's also one, if you're just interested in this topic, I would definitely read through that. It's a quick read, gives you a lot of helpful tips and information, and it was really helpful for me.
What's it called again? You cut off right when you said it. What's it called?
Sorry, Dressing with Dignity by Colleen Hammond.
A relation to yours, Colleen?
No, I've
same
actually met her, and the funny thing is we used to live like only a few miles apart with unknowing to each other. But yeah, no relation or anything. But yeah, cool. She's not sedevacantist as far as I know, but she used to be a model. She actually was like Miss Michigan or something like 20, 30 years ago. And so she started learning about a lot of the fashion things that, what makes something look good versus bad, and, the figure type and the coloring and all that. She kind of introduced me a lot to a lot of that stuff through her different things. And she even has like a program, like you can pay and sign up, and, she can like kind of coach you through that stuff if you're interested in that. But where was I going with that? But anyway, she kind of at some point, discovered, modesty and dress and the church teaching. And so then she kind of started, trying to apply a lot of what she knew in the fashion industry to dressing well. And so she has kind of some very useful information.
Cool. It's awesome. And I think that's what a lot of people need. I don't know if anybody here or anybody watching, but I know especially for the men that watched the last one too, there were men, I really had some positive feedback on that said, hey, that helped. It helped with the mindset, and it helped a little bit with the idea of, okay, how do we do this? And I really think maybe the issue with doing these really practical podcasts is like, hey, here is what works. It's a hard thing to do over a video. I think maybe with Colleen's PDF, it might work, honestly. I think that might, if you go through that and talk about it with a couple people, I think that actually it could go. So maybe I'll get back in touch with you ladies, and I'm definitely not going to host that one. I'm going to send that to Michelle or Chicky or Ina or somebody, because that I'm going to stay away from that one. But
well, you still get full points for bravery, Kevin. You still get full points.
I appreciate that. The difference between bravery and insanity is very, very close, and I'm gonna stick with it being brave for one podcast, and the insane I'm gonna let someone else take. But that being said, I've really enjoyed it, ladies, and I hope that anyone watching this has as well. I think there's been some really good points, and I think that, again, I hope we all come away with the same idea. That, and I'll come back to you, Colleen, in a second. The idea that most of my podcasts, all of my podcasts, want to get across is that we need to live our faith and be proud of our faith and love our faith. And it sounds like it's all cliche, but really be proud of it. I mean, and I think that's such a overlooked thing. If you're praying your rosary in public, and do you hide it, or do you keep it out? I mean, these are really, they seem really small, but they're really huge. As Colleen said, for goodness sake, look at the Muslims. We went on a boat. I'm sorry, I'm going off topic here, but we were on a boat trip here in Munich, or here in Germany, and the crazy, weird thing, like a packed boat, and this Muslim lady in full on everything, just has her cell phone out and is playing this, this Muslim, like I don't know, whatever it is, like just like as loud as she can, like in the boat, and like kind of like this, holding it up, like, I don't know. I mean, proclaiming this boat to be Allah's or something. I don't know. I don't know what her point was, but the idea is, in general, yeah, they just don't have the shame of it. They do it because it's their part of their belief system, and they do it. And heck, I mean, as Colleen said, if they can do it, we better too. So let's live our faith. Let's love our faith, and let's think about everything we do. Let's think about everything we wear. If it be pants or skirts or whatever else, let's do it for the right reasons. Colleen, go ahead, and then we'll click the end button.
Yeah, sorry. I remembered the last thing that I was thinking of, and I saw the comments again on the side, and that made me remember. The comment, I think it's from Dominique, about people asking if your legs are cold when you're wearing a skirt in the winter. I've seen more instances of people saying the opposite thing, making the opposite comment in the summer. They see you wearing a skirt and they say, "Aren't you hot?" And I'm like, "What planet do you live on where a skirt is hotter than pants?" Like, you've never heard of this thing called airflow? I mean, seriously. It gets you in a skirt. Okay, in the winter, okay, yeah, I wear leggings or something underneath. But in the summer, a skirt beats pants by any definition, by any metric, as being cooler.
There's been times where I wished I was Scottish in the summers. Let's just say that. That's undeniable. But you're born.
Sorry, that was my last comment.
You're born Scottish, or you're born unlucky, I suppose. But all right, ladies, thanks so much for joining, and hopefully again you can all join again for a podcast where we talk a little bit more. You talk a little bit more about the details and nitty gritty. Maybe go a little bit into the PDF about shapes and colors and what goes with what, stuff that is way above my head, and it's a nightmare. So we'll save that for another time. I'll talk to you ladies about that sometime and get someone else to host it. Until then, thanks so much for joining, and God bless all three of you, and good luck with whatever your outfits are going to be for the rest of the day, I suppose. All right, God bless, ladies.
Bless you. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.